Hi Natalie, nice to see that you've written your first essays for us. Well done. Let's get right into it. So the first one is about schools. Should they just educate or should they be entertaining as well? Let's see what you said here. Okay, so it is continually argued whether activity in schools should be only aimed at education. Whether it should be aimed only at educational processes or be more entertaining. I strongly agree with the viewpoint that including various entertaining activities is beneficial for children as it helps to evolve cognitive skills as well as interpersonal skills and physical abilities. Okay, good. Firstly, including playing techniques can enhance children's cognitive abilities as different games stimulate imagination, reflexes, and planning skills. This is because games usually involve numerous skills that people should develop if they want to win. For instance, recent research in Russia has shown that short games between lessons result in better children's performance. Well, not better children performance, but better performance in a number of lessons. Okay, so you didn't really need this word children here at all. Let's look at it again, okay? So, for instance, recent research in Russia has shown that short games between lessons result in better performance. How about this? I'll start one more time. For instance, recent research in Russia has shown that short games between lessons result in children having better performance in a number of lessons, especially art ones. Fine. Secondly, entertaining activity that includes sports. How about this? An entertaining activity that includes sports is likely to have a strong positive effect on children's development. The main reason for this is that sport demonstrates a holistic approach which helps children to develop their physical condition as well as mental stability. For example, not only do team games, namely football, hockey, volleyball, help, not helps, youngsters, ST is missing here, to grow healthy, but these activities also develop interpersonal skills such as ability to communicate, create plans, and work out different tasks together with other team members. Okay, so both of these body paragraphs are quite good. You've done a good job. You've followed the template pretty closely. There's just one thing that's missing. You do need to have a conclusive statement at the end of each of these paragraphs, sort of a takeaway, which is essentially just linking back to the first sentence of each paragraph. Okay, so don't forget to include that. All right, your conclusion now. In conclusion, I believe that schools should include more playing activities into their curriculum, despite the fact that the classical education process has numerous benefits. It seems that additional activities, such as different games and sports activities, are likely to bring a plethora of benefits for children in terms of physical well-being, cognitive development, and interpersonal skills. I think that in the nearest future, we will probably see some changes related to everyday activity of pupils in schools. Alrighty, so for your first essay, it's good. You've done a nice job, okay? It read very easily. You could see that it flowed. Accurate grammar, accurate vocabulary, no problems. The coherence and cohesion was managed really well, so no issues there as well. I will tell you a couple of things, apart from the thing I mentioned about that kind of concluding statement in each paragraph, a couple of other things that I want to mention. So, what are the most important paragraphs in your IELTS essay? They are this one and this one. This is where you really develop your ideas and, well, yeah, that's where you develop your ideas. So, this is where you really want to focus the majority of your writing. Why am I telling you this? Because look at the length of your paragraphs. Your conclusion is even longer than one of your bodies. And I want you to avoid that, okay? I want you to put your energy into writing your body paragraphs, and your introduction and your conclusion should really be relatively shorter, okay? In fact, it is not uncommon for me to see conclusions that are just 2 sentences long. Now, speaking of your conclusion, take a look at what you wrote here. You said, despite the fact that classical education process has numerous benefits. This honestly didn't belong here. Why? Because you never mention it in your body, and we never introduce new elements, new ideas, or new facets in the conclusion. One of the things that you could have done if you wanted to was write a paragraph about the benefits classical education has, okay? The sole purpose is to educate. You could have theoretically spent a paragraph, your first body paragraph, saying that, you know, there is some validity to just focusing on education. There is some reasoning behind it, and it's, you know, I can see why some people might think that this is the ideal way to educate. Then you could have gone into your second body paragraph saying everything else you said about these important things that entertaining activities in school do. So that's one way you could have done it. But what you did here is really not doing you a great service, because then the reader's like, well, wait a minute, why is she talking about this now? Did she mention it somewhere in her body? You didn't. So I would have left it out. Okay? All right. Good job overall. The other thing that I wanted to mention, actually before I forget it, is some of the vocabulary. You had a couple of areas of nice vocabulary, but I wanted to see this a little more consistently. So you had things like holistic approach, mental stability, interpersonal skills, numerous benefits was okay, cognitive development. Yeah, so all of that's good, but I want to see this consistently throughout your essay. I mean, there were a couple places where you used the wrong words, so be careful with that, all right? I know you're aiming for above a 7, so just be careful and try to keep your vocabulary consistently high and accurate. All right, let's move on to your second essay here. Doing an enjoyable activity. 2 things it can do, help develop better skills and more creativity. Do you agree? Let's see what you said. It is often argued whether an entertaining activity, don't forget your article, can be more beneficial for children than reading. In my opinion, I strongly agree that A, pleasant, and you don't mean various, that's not the right word here, activity helps to develop diverse, useful skills in youngsters. That's the word, youngsters. Don't forget your ST there. In this essay, we'll elaborate on it more with examples of playing with parents and participating in sports. Okay. Okay, fine. So, moving on. Firstly, doing a variety of pleasant activities, IES, such as playing or just walking and talking with children, can bring a lot of benefits for a child. The main reason is that this kind of activity helps to develop cognitive abilities, imagination, watchfulness, and other very useful skills. It is especially important when a child has an opportunity to interact with influential grown-ups by means of playing or walking and talking. A number of recent, research isn't countable. So instead, let's say a number of recent studies show that these kinds of spending time. How about these kinds of pastimes, one word, with children help to boost their cognitive abilities. For example, children that spend at least 30 hours in a week playing with their parents Children were able to solve simple mathematical equations much faster in comparison with those who did not have this kind of interaction. Therefore, what happens? Don't forget to link it back to your first statement, okay? Secondly, sports activities, forget about the kinds of activities. So sports activities can be also very beneficial for a child. They can involve different kinds of interpersonal communication with other people, as well as include healthy physical training. No S. This kind of enjoyable activity is a good illustration of necessity to develop different personal skills besides reading. To illustrate, team games usually hone interpersonal skills, namely negotiating, team planning, and working out on tasks together with other team members. Okay. So check it out. Here you talked a lot about cognitive abilities. Cognitive abilities you mentioned at least twice here. Here you're talking about interpersonal communication and healthy physical training. But what did the essay ask you to talk about? Better skills and more creativity. So where are you going to discuss that? Okay? you needed to mention creativity. It was very clearly laid out for you in the task, and so you have to mention it. If you don't, it's absolutely going to affect your task achievement score. All right? Now, another place here that I wanted to look at was this sentence right here. It says, this kind of enjoyable activity is a good illustration of the need to develop different personal skills. This was just awkward, this besides reading. You haven't really talked about reading at all. And the way you phrased it was strange. I mean, because reading isn't really a personal skill, is it? So it was just very strange to me, the way it was worded. All right, and then again, of course, you did need that conclusive statement there. So to conclude, I believe that playing in different games, walking and talking with a child, playing sports, and playing sports are likely to be more influential on a child's development than just reading. Despite the fact that reading is a very useful and necessary skill, other types of activity mentioned above could be more effective in development of interpersonal skills, cognitive abilities, imagination, creative thinking. Okay, so you mentioned reading in your conclusion. You mentioned it just as a word here. You never really discussed reading, though. You could have. That was another thing you could have done. You could have talked about how reading helps develop better skills and more creativity, and yet despite that, these activities do that better. Okay, that was one way you could have developed this. But this, like I said, this paragraph was problematic for me because you didn't mention creativity at all. Let's see what else I want to talk about. Some grammatical errors that I want you to be aware of and be careful with. So what you need to do now is, of course, correct these essays, okay? Correct them based on the feedback you received in this video, and then send that back to us. The next thing you need to do is create an error correction list where you write down all of the mistakes that were pointed out to you, and then next to each mistake, write what the corrected version is. This is a list you're going to add to with each subsequent video correction. Send that to us as well. And that's just for your benefit, but send it back to us so that we know you're doing it. And then you need to write a new set of essays using all the feedback you got from this video correction to write the next one. So go ahead and do that. Try to do it within the next day or so you can really apply everything you've been learning, okay? So a handful of things to do. I'll let you get to it. Good luck, and I'll be waiting to see what you write next.